What is good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle, and the Waukesha tragedy is a perfect example of what I mean by when I say we can't share a country. It's because of this wokeism. That's what it comes down to. That's why I'm talking about it all the time. I'm going to use the word wokeism, postmodernism, just to change it up. It's all the same. Marxist foundation, critical race theory. And the people who are controlling things, they don't really believe in this. They believe it's a way to control people and to keep themselves or to rise into power. We have 5 murdered, dead, ran over, and 40 injured during a Christmas parade. America's been suffering death by 1,000 cuts dating back years now. I go back a decade from what I've seen, where I start to see critical race theory being brought up, maybe even before that. To understand how wokeism and all this stuff presented this opportunity of tragedy, I'm going to go back to 2015. A New Yorker article entitled "The Milwaukee Experiment: What Can One Prosecutor Do About the Mass Incarceration of African Americans?" It the thought behind this is so brilliant because it sounds like a noble cause. They are really good at hyping up the experiment, really bad at critiquing the results. Oh, and look who has the byline. Our good old friend, Jeffrey Tubin. Yeah. Okay. Like many people in the criminal justice system, John Chisholm, the district attorney in Milwaukee County, has been concerned for a long time about the racial imbalance in American prisons. I'm sure he's so torn up about it. Prosecutors have to redefine their proper role in a new era. Chisholm stuck his neck out there and started saying that prosecutors should be judged by their success in reducing mass incarceration and achieving racial equality. A prosecutor? A prosecutor's job should be judged by their success in reducing mass incarceration and achieving racial equality. That's not the job of a prosecutor. John Chisholm is a woke DA who doesn't give a damn about anybody's skin color. This is my opinion here. Doesn't give a damn about our country, other than how he can leverage these issues into power. Prosecutors have aspirations, and many of them wind up, when they're the best of the best, they become big, whatever the case may be. They become the chosen one by the establishment, the people with the money behind it. They end up in the Senate, the top ones with aspirations who can raise money. They end up in DC, usually the Senate, like Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris. And they saw back in 2015, well, we got 80 to 90% of the black vote, and I'm putting away black people, and that's going to hurt me if I want to rise. That's my opinion. That's what they're really That's what they're really concerned about. When somebody commits a crime and they're in front of the judge, the prosecutor, the jury, nothing should matter other than facts and what is best for society. And that all has to happen within that defendant's constitutional rights. That's what their job is. Their job isn't to look at race and say, oh, I shouldn't be incarcerating this many black people. Here's what they do. They look at the African American population in Wisconsin and then say, African Americans constitute about 6% of the population, but 37% of them are in, are of the state prison population. So you're looking at over 6 times the amount of representation proportionately in the state prison to the state. There could be many reasons for that, but when you look at things through the lens of critical race theory, racism is the only explanation. And there could be racial issues going on, but it's not the prosecutor's job to bring about racial equity. That's critical race theory. That's how it started. Here's how it's going. John Chisholm admits his office let Waukesha suspect go on inappropriately low bail before parade incident. The Milwaukee DA, John Chisholm, said his office recommended $1,000 bail for Brooks following his arrest on November 5th. So Brooks is the one who did this horrible tragedy in Waukesha, on charges that he punched his girlfriend in the face and hit her with his vehicle in a gas station. Yeah, that's what happened. November 5th. Brooks was also charged with eluding police officers when they arrived to take him into custody. A review of Wisconsin court records show Brooks may have been a familiar figure to Chisholm. If he wasn't, he should have been, given that he was arrested and charged about a half dozen times in Milwaukee County during Chisholm's tenure. He was in and out of there like it was nothing. And after the first time, second time, you realize I can be in and out of here with like it's nothing. And what happened? Nothing happened. He's had all kinds of issues going back to 99. He was released from jail in February after posting $500 bail on charges of reckless endangerment and felony possession of a firearm. Brooks's bail was initially set at $10,000, but it was drastically lowered because the case was put on hold due to the backlog created by the pandemic. Our whole approach to the pandemic fits right in with wokeism. Never challenge the establishment, force authoritarianism. We get power to enact it on people who don't believe what we believe. That's what happened with the pandemic. That's what's happening with these woke DAs. And now we have real life tragedy and casualties. His rap sheet was pretty long.
Let's go back through his crimes. Math boy, substantial battery, intended bodily harm, a Class E felony. In 2010, strangulation and suffocation. 2008, statutory sexual seduction. 2011, resisting or obstructing an officer. Last year, he was charged with 2 counts of recklessly endangering safety with a dangerous weapon and 1 count of illegally possessing a firearm. On November 5th, he was charged with recklessly endangering safety, domestic violence, and bail jumping. There was also a charge where he tried to run over the mother of his child with his car. On November 5th, this is not the first time he's tried to run over someone with his car. And then he was released on November 11th, $1,000 bail.
So John Chisholm admitted that this dude was out in the public in a danger because of his failure, a failure from his office. In the past, Chisholm blamed false information and deliberately manipulated scare stories about the rising crime for the sense of unease that is powering opposition to progressive prosecutors. John Chisholm is known as this progressive prosecutor, along with others like Chesa Boudin of San Francisco fame. And we know what's happening in San Francisco. They've got flash mobs in the area close by, stealing stuff. He's been a part, Chesa Boudin, of turning or reimagining. When they use this term, reimagining, reinventing, it's a scarce term. It's a term that should have your ears perk up. They reimagined San Francisco into a paradise of crime where if you steal something $950 or less, they're not prosecuting and the police aren't arresting because they're not prosecuting. It's a misdemeanor now. Turned San Francisco, in part because of that and other legislation, into a disaster. Letitia James, I did a video on how I feel, in my opinion, she is partially responsible for nearly getting traffic citizen enforcers killed by a dude in a pink jumpsuit and sandals. It happened in New York City. Gateway Pundit had to talk about it. Probably a job for the police. I would say so. Driver easily gets away after violently assaulting 3 NYPD civilian traffic enforcement agents that had approached after a traffic accident.
The civilian traffic department, a bunch of fucking people with gender studies degrees, jump out and go, "Excuse me, sir. You have tapped this other vehicle. I need to see your license and registration." And the dude jumps out and starts beating the shit out of them.
A few weeks back, Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, instructed the NYPD to stop conducting traffic stops and instead leave the job to newly hired civilian traffic agents who immediately got that work. Kim Foxx, you see what is happening in Chicago. Chicago's DA. A lot of these DAs are backed by this leftist billionaire, George Soros, who has been pouring money into electing these progressive DAs in big cities. It's become a failure across the country. I named a couple there. Also in Baltimore, DA Marilyn Mosby. It's all this wokeism and crime is just skyrocketing. Nobody's saying anything. I think it's time to step up. This is time to say something. I'm not for the Biden crime bill, and I'm not for this woke lack of prosecution. First, we have to take race out of it. If you come to me and say, well, I want to reimagine the job of a prosecutor through the lens of racism, and no. There are a ton of different issues, and I will compare it to if you are in a college course, you didn't study for the course, and you take the final exam and you fail it, you get an F. I have to grade your exam. So when a criminal is in front of the court, there could be systemic things. There very well could be systemic issues that are disproportionately unfair, starting from education, starting from family life, all the way up. But when you commit that crime and you're in front of the court, I have to grade you A or F. I'm not going to say, well, you know what, the bail is going to be smaller because there's institutional problems that these DAs are not fixing. All they're saying is we're not going to prosecute. It's unbelievable. And I'm going to end with this. We're not victims. We're products of our own decisions. Who and what we vote for, where we live, many of us have tough decisions ahead. The people in Waukesha County didn't vote for this. It was Milwaukee County, not Waukesha. But they live right next to each other. They're very close. So the mistakes that are made by the voters in one area of the country, whether it's Portland or San Francisco or in Milwaukee, they can affect us all. We have to stand up and say, out of love, if we don't have connection with people that we disagree with, I don't know how that happens. It's going to be very hard. But we need to form connections. Because right now, America is the Titanic, and we are on course to an iceberg of civil war and violence. That's where this takes us. This anti-white, some people call it anti-racist, this anti-white racism, where this is taking us is towards a civil war. If you want to avoid that, we have to stand up and say, I respect you if you're a wokist or not, love you as a fellow citizen. And fundamentally the best way for us to show love is for us to get our representatives to split this country apart. So we don't have to live together. Let me know what you think. Take care.